It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another week's episode of the Tuesday segment on the MSD on 117.8. I'm really excited to be able to share today's Bible Today segment with you all. And I hope that everyone was able to have a great weekend. And as Pastor Sky was recapping the message from this week, that everyone was able to take away a lot because this message was very interesting, as was noted, right? It was about like understanding like about value and about price, right? Which I think like the term value is one that's come up in the message, over an extended period. But discussing like price and comparing the two, I think is really key because there's always a reason why the word is coming out, right? And I think both in terms of this week and the foreseeable future, as well as like with this history and with the word overall, if we can't really extract all of the value, then we become people who aren't very efficient with what we've been given, right? And like because like we are unaware, sometimes we're not able to extract any value, right? Not just from the word, not specifically from the word, but from the things that God does in our life, right? And we kind of let opportunities pass by. And for me, this week's message was really fascinating, and it's something that I have to go back and review once again because it was really crazy. Because for one of my courses this semester, I'm taking like an accounting for lawyers course. And I'll say, like, generally speaking, I think like the general concepts kind of make sense, but because it's kind of like a crash course into accounting and there's a lot of like terms and jargon that's used, sometimes I get lost in the specific accounting terms that are used. But very fascinating enough, this past week's segment, this module that I was doing for the accounting class was specifically about valuation. And so, because of that, this overlap with the message, it was really, really fascinating, right? Because in terms of valuation, like I think one of the core things that this module was covering is that, like, especially when you think about American corporations, right? Corporations, distinctly, like compared to other kinds of different company forms, have shares, right? And like they have securities, they have stock, right? And people are able to purchase stock, in public corporations. And like specifically when it comes to the accounting aspect of it, and when you look at like the different kind of shares and the share prices that stocks of different corporations have, um, how can you tell whether the value of one stock is actually good or not, right? Like when you compare just the two prices of two stocks overall, just because one stock is higher doesn't mean that it's less valuable or more valuable than a stock that is priced lower. So it's not really about the price, right? Like when you have two companies, like when you compare like McDonald's to Google, and you see that Google's shares, like the individual cost of a share, is higher or lower, does that mean that it's less or more valuable than McDonald's, right? And so that's kind of like what the core of the module was talking about. And there was like, no, you got to look at a multitude of factors, but the share price by itself doesn't really tell you anything about value. You have to compare like different figures with the earnings, right? And the earnings per share, like how much revenue the company is bringing in, like compared to each dollar value, right, for the price. Yeah, and there were like a whole host of other things that you have to compare to actually see whether the value of a company is high or not. And then you can also do a lot of analysis in considering like whether like how much money that a corporation puts in terms of its assets, and how much it owes money to creditors, and how much is in the equity holders' hands, and thinking about like whether the company is actually turning a profit by a wide margin, or like whether it's very tight. And so because of this, like, I think my attention was more, alert to the fact that this was coming up in the message too. And like, we really have to carefully do this kind of analysis with the word and with their life as well. Right. I think something was giving a very, profound example when he said, like, for him, he uses a 300 won pen, right? And he uses it to write heaven's revelations and the word and like different kinds of things. And because of that, the value that he extracts out of a pen that's priced at just 301 is so much higher and so much more valuable than just the intrinsic price of that pen. And I think, like this really like it highlights for us what the important distinction is, right? Because, for him, that's what he uses that pen for. But if we had the same pen, right, that same 300 won pen, could we extract the same kind of value from it, right? And maybe the answer is no, right, in terms of the word and receiving those things. But something the thing is really trying to tell us like, why can't we extract these kind of values from all of the things that we use, like whether it's our own skills and talents, something we really talked about about Warmyungdong, about really being able to understand the value properly, and then about pens and these other kinds of things too, right? And so even when you think about it in terms of the world and in business and other things too, like the companies that are best able to extract value, right? Out of anything, right? Out of things as simple as pens, right? And when you think about tech companies, right? Like everyone's kind of like, even if they have the same skills, like what do they use those skills for? Right? Like if you look at like the Nvidia company now, right? Like they're the first public corporation to hit $5 trillion market cap. And it's because like people feel like they're extracting a lot of value out of what they are, right? Out of this big craze about artificial intelligence, like they are the company that's like fueling that the most, right? And so because of that, even though like before AI, they were like doing the exact same things as they are now, right? Like the value of that company wasn't as high as it is today. Right. So in the same way, right, if we use our lives valuably, if we are able to really apply this word in particular, then we become people who recognize this value. And I think this is a very critical time to be in, because it's telling us that for us to go into the future too, we have to be these kind of people. Right? We have to be the kind of people who extract the value out of the word to this kind of degree, because one of the biggest things, right, and something that's been like referencing the people who have left quite a bit more, over these last few weeks and months, but ultimately, one thing, it's not to say that this is the reason why they left, but one thing that is sure about people who have left is that they were not able to extract all the value. They were not able to realize all the value of the things that they had. Because if you knew the value, even if you couldn't extract all of it right away, you wouldn't just give up and leave. And this makes total sense, right? Like if you happen upon a gold mine, even if you couldn't extract all of the gold right then and there, and you're stuck to using like primitive tools and you're barely scraping by, you wouldn't just give up that gold mine and leave. But this is kind of like what it's like when we give up and when we leave, God's embrace. And not just that, but just like all the things that God has given for us if we don't take action on it. And right, this can be in terms of our missions, in terms of our talents and uniqueness, in terms of the opportunities that we have, whether it's to evangelize or these other things, right? God is providing us with all of the tools, all of the means, but it's up to us to extract a thing. And I think this is really important because, I've been speaking to various different kinds of people, and sometimes people feel like they are behind and that, um that they don't feel as much hope as they did before. And I think that's a very natural feeling to feel at times, but the most important thing about like kind of overcoming those kind of things is that God has given us all of the tools. And like even the message, right, one of the first things that it said is that sometimes like God gives things to people without telling the recipient, without telling XYZ people, and without letting Satans and demons know, and only allowing it so that when the time is right, that those things will be revealed, right? Like God doesn't outright just give you like a gold mine because then the government would tax it, and because XYZ would happen, people would try to take it away from you, but he can disguise it and hide it in the form of just a cave, right? In the form of a rock, right? But when it turns out that inside that cave, inside that rock, is like a gold mine, is this big nugget of gold. So that on the outside, people didn't really think much of it, but on the inside, there's something prepared. And only when you search, only when you look into it, and only when you try to extract, the value and ask God for what it is, does He give you those things. And so I really believe that God has given each of us like so many tremendous and valuable things in our life. And all it takes is for us to extract the value out of everything. And by and large, I think Providence is doing this. Right. And the people within Providence are doing this. Right. And the fact that, we're just in this history today and that we're living here alone means that you're extracting a value out of life that 99% of other people are not, right? Because it even said in the Bible too, like even when Jesus was talking about the former history, like he was saying that, of all of the men born out of women, right? There's no one greater than John the Baptist. But even the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than him, right? So of the Old Testament time period, Jesus said there's no one greater than John the Baptist. But even the least of the people who were in the New Testament were far greater. The same way, the same thing holds true for the complete testament as well, right? People who are able to receive Jesus who comes back and live in that level, even if people may think that people we live with less success in terms of physical kind of standards and other things, even the least of someone who serves the Lord as a bride is far greater than people who live with the relationship of a son, right? And this just totally makes sense, right? Like, and we've seen it in the past and we see it again in the present, and this is just a factor of God's history and a fact of life that we must surely remember. And this actually leads to something very interesting, entertaining, right? I was talking with my wife yesterday about this, and she was actually telling me, and I guess this is kind of funny, right? Because she was telling me that she was staying, she and her sister were staying at, their cousin's place the other day, and their cousin's place, the thermostat for the water, right? Because Korea, like most places, they use like a water boiler system. So I guess the water boiler wasn't working, and so they all had to kind of like shower with like not like frigid water, but relatively cold water, right? Like colder than they're used to, right? And so we were talking about that, and I was sharing like how and I still kind of do this at times, but definitely when I was younger, I used to shower with cold water, and like part of that was definitely because Sunseem does that, right? And like Sunseem is doing that for a very long time. And as we were talking about this, what was really fascinating was like, so many of the things that something does, like so many of these practices that he's done from a very young age, like whether it's like cold showers, like whether it's waking up early in the pre-dawn to pray, right? Or it's I think there's a third big one. Oh, fasting, right? Those three things. Like those three things in the world are things that I think like sometimes people don't really recognize the value of. And the same thing within Providence too, right? There's many people who don't entirely know the value. Right? We may kind of know the value, but remember that someone who really knows the value will be someone who is able to do it too, right? And it's not to say that we have to do it to the same like extremes that something does things. Like we don't have to go like 40 days of fasting, 70 days of fasting, nothing like that. But like in order to be someone who truly recognize the value, we have to be people who are like not just uh shocked by those things, and not just, and also not just taking it for granted that something is someone who does it. But we have to really be able to understand like exactly the different kinds of things that work like behind it, right? Like because there's so many spiritual things behind it. I think we recognize the spiritual aspect of it, but we only think that it's a spiritual thing, right? That God has something, did this set condition in these kind of extreme conditions. And that is definitely true too. And like he definitely, has something to do it in order to train his mind and all of these kinds of things too. But I think people also sometimes like we don't think about how the physiological and how the mental part works so that the spiritual training and the physical training and the mental training, all of that comes together. And also, like, people don't really understand the valuable things and the benefits that come from those things. And this isn't really something that's super critical, because I think, like, when we think about something, the reason why he does it is to set spiritual condition, right? So, it's really to, that's like the main thing that we should recognize and be able to understand. However, I do think that sometimes people are hesitant to do it, or they don't understand it, right? And it's like same thing with what something you said, right? Like when it comes to lecturing, or when it comes to like someone who is able to testify about Warmingdom, it's the people who can explain those things well that will really be able to understand the value. And I think the amazing thing with these three practices in particular, waking up early to pray, right? And taking these cold showers in like in really like frigid waters. And three, um, fasting, right? Like I think like I don't know how many I don't know if how many people like really understand the process for how these things work, right? But like over, I would say like over even like the last 10 years, so much science has come about explaining like how your body and your mind changes as a result of these things, right? Like and like approaching this from a physical perspective, they don't talk about like pre-dawn prayer, but they talk about the benefit of going to sleep early, right? And waking up early, right? And for something he may not be able to sleep early, but he always wakes up early, right? And there are so many benefits to that, right? And I think this is something that we talked about on the channel before. But they say like when you wake up early, and this is like a very specific thing, but like when you wake up and you are able to see the sun, the first 30 minutes of sunlight in the day has all of the good things for your skin, for your eyes, for your health, without all of the UV radiation and all of the negative things that come. Like those things come and it slowly starts to build as it passes the hour mark after sunrise. Right. So for something like, of course, like he's mostly doing this for prayer. But the first thing that he sees after this time is the light of the sun, like as it first rises, right? And he receives all of that benefit from these kinds of times. And like even mentally and psychologically, like having sunlight be the first thing that you see is so beneficial for you, right? And for in terms of all your circadian rhythm and other things as well. And the specific one, like going back to the story, right? Like conversing with my wife about this, about cold showers. um like I can't remember like when I started taking cold showers, and I don't like take entirely cold showers anymore. But I'm not opposed to it, right? But I think especially in the world, this is one of those easy things that so many people do not want to do, right? Like most people do not want to take frigid cold showers, right? And I think people don't even know if there's a benefit to it. But recently, like I think more and more has been coming out about the idea of like ice baths, and not even ice baths, but just taking cold showers. But even in terms of the mind, like kind of going back to the with the waking up early thing, one of the things that we've seen, and I think I've talked about this on the MSC like years prior, is that like when you shower in cold water, it does so many things for you. Like on even for the outside of your body, like it raises your immune system, right? Like it raises the internal temperature of your blood, and it raises your immune system to fight off diseases more effectively. It's much better for your skin, much less drying than hot water is. And so these are like some of like the physical exterior kind of things. But mentally, which we may argue is even more important for both the mental aspect and the spiritual aspect, is that when you take cold showers, one of the big things that it does is it like immediately raises your cortisol level, right? The hormone that controls stress, and willingly subjecting yourself to cold water to experience that. The reason why that is beneficial is after that cold water, the cortisol that you experience during that time, it goes way down. And throughout the day, people who like engage in this practice, they are much less prone to stress, than someone who doesn't take cold showers. And I thought this was really fascinating, right? There's all of these kind of studies and things that are coming out talking about the benefit of these things, right? So this kind of goes to show you about the mental training part that arises from taking these cold showers, but it also shows you the benefits of these things too, right? And I think like saying that you should just do these things just for these benefits. Actually, even that, like, kinda goes to this week's message about understanding the value, right? But, like, kinda seeing how God acted in somebody's life to train him and to raise him, through all of these things in the past, like, this is so, so amazing just how much God has done in somebody's life, and how he really has made something like the man of mission, the prime example that we should follow, because doing these things confers all of these beneficial, all of these beneficial things, like both the physical and the spiritual things. Now, even going to the sleeping aspect, which we were just talking about, you know, one of the things that people say, right, that is like the only thing that can offset lack of sleep is to be physically healthy through the form of exercise, right? And like I think like I was actually just reading an article about this the other day, but one of the most important things in order for our long-term health and longevity is our VO2 max, right? Which kind of is one measure of how healthy your lungs are and your lung capacity. And like the only thing that increases VO2 max is aerobic exercise, right? Cardiovascular exercise, right? And so for something like from the time that he was like in his 30s and 40s, right, he diligently ran and he played soccer, right. And like if you guys like read the peace soccer book, the first thing that he talks about in the preface is that the reason why he started playing soccer like for Providence was because like as he was making ministry, he got tuberculosis, right, because he was praying for people who were sick, and they were making ministry, and he was teaching like in these kind of very small confined buildings that were like a little bit dilapidated and didn't have the best airflow, right? So because of that he got sick, and that was the reason why he started playing soccer, because he received this inspiration from Jesus telling him to go out, and every morning I will give you this time to exercise, right, in the soccer field, in this elementary school field, so that you can run around and play soccer and improve your health, right? And so many things happen because of that, right? One thing, as we just noted before, about even waking up early and about the sunlight, right, like that was the time that something went out to play soccer, right? This very early morning period when there's no impurities from the sun and there's all of these benefits and things that you receive. And he was increasing his VO2 max. And as someone who was working so diligently and didn't have a lot of sleep, the only thing that can mitigate the health risks that come from lack of sleep and other things is to be really healthy in terms of your lung capacity, your VO2 max, and other kinds of things that come from physical exercise. So that's the only thing that can offset that, right? And so all of these things that God did, he really did in order to take care of something and to raise him, right? And not just that, but there's all of the spiritual reasons that these things were done, but we have to be people who really understand all the different facets of something's life, and are able to explain it well to people, are able to live according to it in our own capacity, in the ways that we need, right? Because uh, for each of us, there's a certain level of how much we can extract from these things, right? And what would be the highest level of extraction? It would be to live according to the way that he does, right? To live following that example. That is the highest level that we can live, right? If we live according to the word, if we live according to his example, that is a life of having extracted that value out of everything that God gives us through the man of mission, through this history, right? And I don't think like really need to go too much into fasting too, but there's so many benefits of fasting. But I think that's the one that I don't want to take away, like especially from the spiritual perspective, right? Because um something you said, immense spiritual condition through fasting, right? And it's like something that can't be taken away from him, right? Like of all the things that he's done, those kinds of things, those kinds of conditions that he set through fasting and other things, those are really things that, no matter what people may say, are really, really, really hard to do. Yeah, maybe people can take cold showers, and maybe people can wake up in the early morning and pray and exercise. Not many people can even do those things, and not many people can even do it on the level that he does. But fasting, I think, is the one thing that really very few people have been able to do. And I don't know if there's anyone who's been able to do it in the same way, to the same extent, and definitely not with the same purpose as something did, right? And as Jesus did too, right? But we all know the benefits of fasting, right? Like I think like if you fast even for 72 hours, like that's like kind of at a point when your body starts to eat up a lot of negative things in your body, right? And so they say like fasting, like for those kind of periods, like every now and then, is really, really, really beneficial for you, right? And it's kind of weird, right? Because in I think like back when people used to live in a world where there was a lack of abundance. uh I think having enough to eat was a bigger concern. But nowadays, right, like where like having something to eat isn't necessarily the most difficult and challenging thing to do. Like instead we have this thing of like, oh, we have to be careful with what we ingest, and we have to be make the right choices in terms of the things that we input into our bodies, so the things that we eat too. And I think a big problem for a lot of people are sicknesses and diseases and illnesses that come after a life of eating unhealthy, right? Like this is a major, major big problem, especially in a lot of developed nations. But like even things like fasting and things like praying and all of these things can help mitigate those kinds of things, right? But this is, I would say, just one facet of the different kind of practices that something conducts, and like how beneficial those things are, right? So it kind of gives us another avenue, another way to testify about the things that something does, and showing like how all of these things that he was doing and that he did in order to train himself and raise himself, and that God did to raise him, they have all of these scientific and all of these immense things that are going on in the background, right? Something was really given all of these things that are precious and as valuable as gold, and he's also made them available to us as well, right? And he's done these things even well before it was common knowledge, and well before other people knew it too. And even when other people try to do it now, and they do those things for the sake of doing those things, people aren't able to receive the same kind of value as the way that something did it, in the time that something did it, and for the purpose that he did it, right? Because some people take cold showers, and some people fast periodically, and some people wake up early and they get sunlight early in the day. But for the vast majority of people who even do those things, they do it only for those practical benefits. And I think like most people who do those things, like uh they're not very consistent with it from what I can see. Right? You may do it from time to time. But for something, he did these things sometimes out of necessity, right? Because he just didn't have things to eat. He fasted and he prayed, right, with his life on the line. And at other times, like with the setting the pre-dawn condition and with taking cold showers, he didn't just do those things just for the benefit of those things, like just for the health benefit of those things. Like that's not the reason why he did it. But he did it to put his life on the line and to set this earnest condition before God, right? And I think this past Sunday, uh not this week, but actually this past Saturday, right? Like we were re-listening to the Time Times Half Times lecture that the pastors had to deliver, and there was like an excerpt that one of the pastors was sharing about the things that Jesus said about something, how something set condition in all circumstances in his life. Right, there is never a time that something didn't pray to the Trinity and to Jesus, and there was never a time where he didn't give thanksgiving to God. And there was never a time that he didn't give love to God and that he didn't seek God. Right. So through all of these things, right, like something set this ultimate condition. And Jesus was saying, without your teacher, you would not be able to receive this level of word and this kind of salvation. in the fulfillment of all of these things. Like we ourselves, by our condition alone, we cannot do that. We cannot receive these things. Because how many people can say that they do any single one of these things that something does? And even if, we are able to do these kinds of things, right? Like how much value are we able to extract out, right? We each have pens, but how many people use those pens to write down God's words and delivers it for the world and for people, right? We each have been given that input of 301, but how much do we extract out of that, out of those things, right? So I think this is really a powerful thing to really note and for us to value once more. Yeah, but I just thought that this was a fascinating conversation, a fascinating topic that I was talking to with my wife, and that came about from this word. And I really hope that from this, that each of us, right, because we're each unique and we each have our unique set of circumstances from which we can extract value from the things that God did in our life. And so I really hope that through this week and through our lives that we can become people who shine, because even though God input the same thing, the same clump of dirt and the same blood, the same general amount of blood, the same general amount of hair, the same general amount of skin and XYZ and all of these things, that we can become people who really live this life valuably. But at the core, I really hope that we also don't forget that people who have made it in this history and have listened to the word and live according to it, that people who live in this way, they're far greater than anything in the world and in the former history, right? As Jesus said of the Old Testament and the New Testament as well. And so with that, we'll conclude Bible today with this, and I will hand things off to Rachel with 2G Talks.
back to our Tuesday segment. Rachel here for 2G Talks. Today, I'll just be sharing a really short couple of updates, personal updates, second gen wide updates, and more. So let's go ahead and get started. Yes, so happy to have you with us again on this wonderful Tuesday, or whatever day you happen to be listening to this incredible podcast that Eddie and myself have for you guys. How was your past weekend? I hope the beginning of your week is going splendidly. I really cannot believe it is already November. Can you believe that? I mean, the second week of November. It's just, it's at that time of the year when everything is just flying by so quickly. You know, I think everyone, we all have these plans and things that we want to do and things we want to get done, but life just flies by. And so really, I truly have realized the word Sansanam has been saying recently, and that he's always says is grab hold of that time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because I can really feel it. I wonder too, maybe, is this just what happens when you get old? When you get older, time just slips by, time just passes by so quickly. So, but I'm very grateful. I love this time of the year. It's one of my favorite times. I hope everyone is really excited. Here in the States, we're going to be having Thanksgiving soon. We'll be having our Thanksgiving break. So teachers, students, jobs, everyone gets a time off, maybe a couple days, up to a week off. And then we're already in December. I can't believe it. Have y'all started thinking about your New Year's resolution? Honestly, for this year, oh my gosh, now that I think about it, I didn't really have that many resolutions. No, that's false. I just forgot about them. I did have some resolutions, but I'll talk about those later. Anyways, like I said at the beginning of my 2G Talks during my intro, today is going to be quite short, and more so just a couple of updates of things that have been happening recently that I wanted to share with you guys. Personal updates, but also department-wide national updates as well. So things that I'm really excited to share, things that we're going to be doing moving forward. So I guess let me start with, I'll share personal later. Let me start with second gen, because that's something that I'm very passionate about, the second generation, that I have a lot of, compassion, earnestness, sincerity, whatever it is you want to call. That's where my drive is in this Providence history. I really want to help the second generation. And so, two things. The first thing was, of course, we all know, October, the month of giving glory, has officially ended, but of course we should still give glory to the Holy Trinity. But we were able to, as an entire national department here in AP, we were able to have the second generation film themselves, and I think I mentioned this a little while back. They filmed themselves throughout their daily lives as they would normally, them giving glory to God. And really what it is we wanted to not just have them kind of stage moments of them giving glory to God, but really try and capture, of course, on camera, how they spend their daily lives together with God, even in the most mundane task, whether it be cleaning or practicing an instrument, drawing or writing, reading your Bible, playing sports, singing songs, whatever it may be that you might just do in your everyday life. Have that time where you're actually focusing and spending that time together with God while you're doing those things. And so, constant reminders. We actually got quite a few videos. Some of them are really cute. Like I mentioned, I went to New York a couple weeks ago. I can't believe it. And it seems like so long ago already. And I had the opportunity to, as my friend would say, stand on business, which is just what it means to be type A, forcing other people to also be type A in certain situations and circumstances. But yeah, I had the opportunity to go to New York, and all the other second generation from the East Coast were there as well. And so I kind of herded them all together, hauled them all together, and we were able to have a time of giving glory, and we were able to record that and use that in our video. So we finally were able to create that video and send it out nationwide. I know some churches, some regions were able to listen to it, while others are still in the process of doing so. And if you're a national or international MSD listener, I am so sorry. You probably won't see the video, but it was very cute. We had a wide range of different second generation, and I mean, honestly, I had the opportunity as second gen leader, one of the leaders, to be able to watch this second gen giving glory video prior to it being broadcasted. And when I watched it for the first time, I don't know why, I just got I was overcome with so much emotion, because in the video we have really, really babies. We have infants, toddlers, all the different ages, all the way up to 30 even. And so many different races and backgrounds, ethnicities, and it was just so moving to see how, although we're all so different as second generation, we have completely different lifestyles, we have different ways that we were raised in different environments, and the fact that we all can come together for this one core purpose and reason, and the fact that it ties not just to like us believing in one thing, but it ties to literally us, how we were born. The reason why we're alive and the reason why we exist is because of this history and because of God. It was very moving. By the end of the video, I was like almost in tears, and then I had to watch it again. So I watched it by myself twice, and then we watched it again during the Sunday service, and I was service leading, so I really had to control my emotions, but I was so moved, and it really has encouraged me to pray even more diligently for the second generation. How much I love them. I think it's not just me that has all these emotions. I feel like it's the Holy Spirit really allowing me to feel the deep heart that the Trinity have for the second generation. Because in the past, I really didn't care. I was very just like, me. You just focus on, okay, I gotta survive. But after being able to interact with so many second generation and see what needs to be done and where help is needed and encouragement, I couldn't help but have compassion for the second generation, and it makes me want to pray for them and really support them and help them to maintain a good faith, but also help them to really see the joy and happiness and receive hope and receive that love, the ultimate love that we receive from the Holy Trinity and their Sons in Him and Jesus. So yeah, that's just me gushing about my second gen. I love the second gen so much. I call them my kids, even though some of them are like my age. I'm not older, but my children, I love them so much. I can't help it. That's what I used to call my students when I was a teacher. I'd call them my kids, so I think that's how I call, any people that I'm in charge of, whatever department. But so that's the first thing for second gen, me gushing about them and how amazing they did in the video. And then secondly, this is very important. This is not something that has started officially, but because MSD, you guys get the inside scoop always, I am implementing, after hearing one or two second gen actually, who were really interested in growing their faith, more so through the word, i.e. lecture training. So I've done lecture training in the past for my church when I was ministry rep, but I've never done it for second generation. So I'm really happy and I'm really excited. But yes, we will be starting, hopefully by the end of this month, if not in December or end of December, we're going to be starting an official AP Second Generation Lecture Training Program. I'm so excited. And so this lecture training is not a example. Lecture teaches people make the lesson, and then that's it. No. We are going to have this be hands-on. Lecture trainees or participants will just receive the resources, perhaps like an outline or a PowerPoint or something like that. And from said resource, they will then create their own PowerPoint or Word document, whatever they feel most comfortable doing. And then they will be presenting. So the main purpose of this lecture training is just to get second generation comfortable with teaching the word in a controlled and safe, comfortable environment. I think in general, I don't want to say across Providence. I think Pastor Sky has a better kind of understanding and view of that, but definitely in AP. I know this for a fact. Lecturers are far and in between. We just don't have many. And for myself as well, someone who is in the process of lecture training on my own, I come to see how truly limited we are in evangelizing due to the fact that we don't have people who are able to teach. And yeah, I have met and talked with quite a few people who say, oh, I can lecture, but I think lecturing to the point where you can absolutely evangelize a person is different than just being able to like hold your own and kind of like, yeah, I could do it, because when you're evangelizing someone, you're changing their entire reality. You're forming a new world in which they're going to be living in. For myself too, I ask myself this question all the time. Is this lesson that I'm creating, is this Bible study, are the words that I'm speaking, do I have the conviction and the power behind my words, not just for the lesson to speak for itself? Because of course, the Bible studies that Sunsanim has spent so much time suffering and finding and working for are so valuable. But if we don't present it well, if we don't cook the food in a majestic and amazing way, then the people eating it aren't going to be impressed by this, even though this is like Wagyu beef, right? This is like the best quality steak that you could get. But if we chop it up, grind it, and throw it in the microwave, they're not going to realize that this is like the most amazing meal that they would ever have in their life. So I always ask myself, is this Bible study I'm creating a Bible study that will make someone and change their reality and help them to create the reality of the ideal world within themselves? And if the answer is no, then I need to keep working on that and really praying and research more for that. And so I think we lack lecturers to that extent who are confident in, yes, I have the ability to change people's lives, change their mentality from the words and from the Bible studies that I have. And so I want to become a lecturer who's like that, and I also want to help other second generation and other members as well become lecturers who can really do that and change the world, change people's worlds, right? And so I'm super excited. We're going to, of course, that level of like earth-shattering, reality-shattering lecturing is really hard to achieve. It's not easy. And so we're going to start small, just having second generation get used to and really looking at the word and then preaching it. Because for myself too, growing up, I always thought, I've already told you guys, I thought I knew the word. I just didn't think anything of it. I didn't think how special it really was. But after coming to realize, listening to the Bible studies, I thought, oh wow, I really know the value. No, it was only actually until I had to start teaching other people and I had to really start and reflecting, do I know this Bible study like the back of my hand? Do I actually know these scriptures? Only when I started doing that and teaching myself so I could teach other people were my eyes, I think, fully opened, and I realized, oh, wow, this word is really so valuable, right? And it gave me so much more conviction Like, I I could get into lecturing. That's a whole other topic of discussion, but it just made me realize how amazing the truth that we have here in Providence is because of Sonship and the Holy Trinity and, of course, Jesus. So, yeah, I'm super excited. Like I said, I'm hoping to start this second gen AP wide lecture training very soon. Honestly, I kind of want to keep it really small, like only 1 to 2 to 3 participants joining, but we will see, of course. I really just want to help and give each member and participant that opportunity and ability to have that one-on-one connection and that one-on-one help and guiding. Although I am someone who's lecture training and studying and learning how to teach the Bible studies myself, I think because God gave me a really great background, He forced me. I say forced because, yes, I did not want to become a teacher, but He forced me to become a teacher, and He forced me to do it for 3 years. Maybe I shouldn't say forced. He pushed me. He guided me into that direction to do those things. Because I was a teacher, I was able to really master the physical aspect of what it's like to speak in front of people. Right? I don't get nervous that really when I have to speak in front of people. I know how to hold myself. I don't rush through my words like I'm nervous. I can pace myself. I can be animated. I can have fun and make jokes. I kind of know my style in teaching. So I didn't have to figure that out on top of learning the word. I was able to just do that. After gaining that mastery of the physical aspect of what it's like to be a lecturer and speak in front of people, now that I'm going over that spiritual aspect, okay, what are the scriptures? What is the story, the life that I want to relay through this Bible study to this newcomer? It's a little bit easier, and I think it's easier for me to create the Bible studies, and even though I'm a beginner lecturer, I'm to my own horn, I think I'm pretty good. So, yeah, I'm hoping to help create people, especially within the second generation department, who can come to realize the value of the word even more deeply, but also become confident even more so in their faith and really have that pride and that they can say, yes, I'm in Providence and this is what I believe, and, prove me wrong. Anyways, yeah. So I'm super excited. I definitely ask for all of your prayers. If you would definitely pray for the second generation department here in AP, I would really appreciate it. We're hoping to do a lot in the future for the second generation with retreats, meetings, lecture trainings, things like this. We even have an evangelism competition that's going on and taking place. So, yes, please pray for us, and I will continue to work hard as one of the second generation leaders to really help fulfill God's will, the purpose of creation here on earth. So, fighting! Lastly, like I said, I have some personal updates just very quickly. So my personal updates, they're not, I guess they are kind of personal, but not so personal. It's more so all tied to ministry. I know since I was just talking about second generation lecture training, whenever we are at the end of the year especially, we can't help but look and see how many lives have we taught, how many lives have we lectured, how many lives have we passed. And I'll have to be honest, it's definitely not as many that I would like at all. But just like God said in the messages in the past and very recently, God will only send you as many lives as you can handle, only according to what you can do. So I can't really blame anyone but myself. So personally here, especially in Houston, we are wrapping up our fall semester 2025 kind of ministry that we've been doing, and it's bittersweet in a sense because we can't help but acknowledge all the hard work that we did, and at the same time we can't help but acknowledge all the work that we should have done that we weren't able to do. Or perhaps I personally have regrets and things that I wanted to do and expectations for myself of where I wanted to be, right? I wanted to have more lectures done, or I should say lessons done, so that I could preach and be a better lecturer. I wanted to have that opportunity to do those things more. But I don't want to put myself down too much and get myself into, a rut. Rather, I'm trying to see things in a more positive light. I suppose that's another one of my update. I'm trying to see things in a more positive sense. A lot of times when I talk to people about ministry, especially evangelism, everyone's like, oh, I hate it. I feel so discouraged. And honestly, I was that way too. It was only from some of the campus girls, our campus ministry rep, who's here in Houston, and, my best friend too. It was only from those two really good friends of mine that they were able to help me get out of my rut that I was once in. And so personally, I'm now in that place where I feel I'm in the position to help others get out of that sense of disappointment when it comes to evangelism. I have to acknowledge evangelism is really hard and difficult, and I know Pastor Sky is someone who many and myself included, we can't help but look up to him because he's someone who's so gung-ho for evangelism and has had much success in it. And we all want to be people who can do that, myself included, but it's not easy at all, right? And so even though you may put in a lot of time and effort, when you don't see those fruits immediately, it's natural to just be really disappointed and become disheartened. But I'm trying to, in my personal life, have a positive outlook on life. Recently, I was thinking about this with evangelism and how I've been treating it and the things that I've been taking action on. And, I was getting discouraged. But then I thought about Sunsonim and the place that he's in right now. And I couldn't help but think about all the story letters, the Holy Spirit story letters he's been sending, and Sunday, Wednesday messages and things like that, about how in each of those messages, there never is a sense of defeat. He never writes or tells us we won't be able to evangelize. Evangelism is so hard, we can't do it. He never says that. Sunsonim every single time is filled with so much hope and so much passion and so much power. And he tells us, you can evangelize. That was the congregational, Let's confess our faith through the responsive reading of Proverbs. That's what it is. The responsive reading of Proverbs, it was you must evangelize. That is the seal of the secret of this time period. Then all of your dreams and blessings will come true through evangelism. And, when you hear it over and over again, it kind of becomes something you just listen to secondhand that you don't really realize. But when I really thought about the room Sunsonim must be in, how small it must be, how uncomfortable. I can't remember if he's still in a room with multiple people or if he's by himself, but if he is, regardless, it's difficult either way. And just being stuck in that place where you can't move, where all Sunsonim can do is just write letters and look at pictures and meet with one person at a time, maybe. He can only do so much. And yet, even in that situation where it seems so impossible and so hopeless, the messages he gives us, that he gives to each of us, every single one of us personally, is always have hope and evangelize, because you can do it. We can do it. Evangelize. And the fact that Sunsonim can have so much hope in such a dire and hopeless situation, especially in something like evangelism, I have to have hope as well. If Sunsonim is victorious in that place, then how much more victorious are we to be free physically and to have been freed in our spirits? So I am very hopeful and I'm very positive that we will be able to evangelize, each and every single one of us. You who are listening right now, you will be able to evangelize. You will evangelize. And we will all do it together because we're going to support each other and we're going to... this word is the truth. This is God's history. We can't deny it, right? And God is always victorious. God never loses, but he wins and wins again together with the Lord. So we will win and win again, right? Right. All right. So with that, I'll go ahead and conclude my 2G talks. I hope you received a lot of grace and hope and passion, and that we can run together for the rest of this year of 2025. There's only a couple of days, less than 2 months. Less than 2 months left. So I really hope that we can do this joyfully together with the Holy Trinity and Lord. Not give up, but go until the end. So with that, I'll conclude here. As always, please leave a like, comment, or of course you can email Eddie and I at 2gtalks@gmail.com. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone.